Chapter 4. I, Nebuchadnezzar, was at rest in my house, and flourishing in my palace. I saw a dream which made me afraid, and imaginings upon my bed, and the visions of my head affrighted me. Therefore made I a decree to bring in all the wise men of Babylon before me, that they might make known unto me the interpretation of the dream. Then came in the magicians, the enchanters, the Chaldeans, and the astrologers, and I told the dream before them, but they did not make known unto me the interpretation thereof. But at the last Daniel came in before me, whose name was Belteshazzar, according to the name of my God, and in whom is the spirit of the holy gods. And I told the dream before him, O Belteshazzar, master of the magicians, because I know that the spirit of the holy gods is in you, and no secret causeth you trouble, tell me the visions of my dream that I have seen, and the interpretation thereof. Thus were the visions of my head upon my bed. I saw, and behold, a tree in the midst of the earth, and the height thereof was great. The tree grew and was strong, and the height thereof reached unto heaven, and the sight thereof to the end of all the earth. The leaves thereof were fair, and the fruit thereof much, and it was food for all. The beasts of the field had shadow under it, and the fowls of the heaven dwelt in the branches thereof, and all flesh was fed of it. I saw the visions of my head upon my bed, and behold, a watcher and a holy one came down from heaven. He cried aloud, and said thus, Hew down the tree, and cut off its branches, shake off its leaves, and scatter its fruit. Let the beasts get away from under it, and the fowls from its branches. Nevertheless, leave the stump of its roots in the earth, even in a band of iron and brass, in the tender grass of the field, and let it be wet with the dew of heaven, and let his portion be with the beast in the grass of the earth. Let his heart be changed from man's, and let the beast's heart be given unto him, and let 7 times pass over him. The matter is by the decree of the watchers, and the sentence by the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it whomsoever he will, and he setteth up over it the lowest of men. This dream I, King Nebuchadnezzar, have seen, and you, O Belteshazzar, declare the interpretation, forasmuch as all the wise men of my kingdom are not able to make known unto me the interpretation, but you art able, for the spirit of the holy gods is in you. Then Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, was appalled for a while, and his thoughts affrighted him. The king spoke and said, Belteshazzar, let not the dream or the interpretation affright you. And Belteshazzar answered and said, My lord, the dream be to them that hate you, and the interpretation thereof to your adversaries. The tree that you saw, which grew and was strong, whose height reached unto the heaven, and sight thereof to all the earth, whose leaves were fair, and the fruit thereof much, and it was food for all, under which the beasts of the field dwelt, and upon whose branches the fowls of the heaven had their habitation. It is you, O king, that are grown and become strong, for your greatness is grown, and reacheth unto heaven, and your dominion to the end of the earth. And whereas the king saw a watcher and a holy one coming down from heaven, and saying, Hew down the tree, and destroy it, nevertheless leave the stump of its roots thereof in the earth, even a band of iron and brass and tender grass of the field, and let it be wet with the dew of heaven, and let his portion be with the beast of the field, till 7 times pass over him. This is the interpretation, O king, and it is the decree of the Most High, which is come upon my lord the king, that you shall be driven from men, and your dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field, and you shall be made to eat grass as oxen, and shall be wet with the dew of heaven, and 7 times shall pass over you, till you know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will. And whereas it was commanded to leave the stump of the roots of the tree, your kingdom shall be sure unto you, after that you shall have known that the heavens do rule. Wherefore, O king, let my counsel be acceptable unto you, and break off your sins by almsgiving, and your iniquities by showing mercy to the poor, if there may be a lengthening of your prosperity. And all this came upon the king Nebuchadnezzar. At the end of 12 months he was walking upon the royal palace of Babylon. The king spoke and said, Is this not great Babylon, which I have built for a royal dwelling place, by the might of my power and for the glory of my majesty? And while the word was in the king's mouth, there fell a voice from heaven, O King Nebuchadnezzar, to you it is spoken, the kingdom is departed from you, and you shall be driven from men, and your dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field, and you shall be made to eat grass as oxen, and 7 times shall pass over you, until you know that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will. The same hour was the thing fulfilled upon Nebuchadnezzar, and he was driven from men, and did eat grass as oxen, and his body was wet with the dew of heaven, till his hair was grown like eagle's feathers, and his nails like birds' claws. And at the end of the days I, Nebuchadnezzar, lifted up mine eyes into heaven, and mine understanding returned unto me. And I blessed the Most High, and I praised and honored him that lives forever, for his dominion is an everlasting dominion, and his kingdom from generation to generation. And all the inhabitants of the earth are reputed as nothing, and he doeth according to his will in the host of heaven, and among the inhabitants of the earth, and none can stay his hand, or say unto him, What doest you? At the same time mine understanding returned unto me, and for the glory of my kingdom, my majesty and my splendor returned unto me, and my ministers and my lords sought unto me, and I was established in my kingdom, and surpassing greatness was added unto me. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and extol and honor the King of heaven, for all his works are truth, and his ways justice, and those that walk in pride he is able to abase. All right, let's go back up to verse 1. And we'll be continuing, so to speak, in the King James Version. We are definitely continuing, and we will be several verses off from where this reading here takes place, but it's all the same. They decided to break the chapters in different places, and 31, where I called to your attention in the last chapter, the break there at the end of the paragraph. This entry from Nebuchadnezzar would begin there. Nebuchadnezzar is that prophet that protects the crown. He was the king of Babylon, and God had given him a great kingdom to rule over. See, but we find that Nebuchadnezzar has to learn a lesson. He has to learn that it's God who does establish the king. It's God that does establish the kingdom. It's God that builds it up. It's God that brings it down. See, that was the Israel. It would have to be taught to the whole earth, because in the beginning it was a simple lesson, and it just has to be learned that it's God. God does rule among men and in heaven. We're going to pick it up here in verse 1. I, Nebuchadnezzar, was at rest in my house and flourishing in my palace. And this is the personal entry from Nebuchadnezzar. Like I'd say, you would, King James Version, simply just, you could locate that verse there, the verse 4. It would be verse 4 in your King James Version. And just follow on. He is flourishing there in his house, in his abode, that place of rest that he has, that God had given him. And he's flourishing in it, even in his palace. Nebuchadnezzar is that prophet. He protects the crown too. And I saw a dream which made me afraid. And images upon my bed, and the visions of my head affrighted me. And he sees this dream, and Nebuchadnezzar is going to record this dream. And this is these visions, these understandings, these imaginings that are upon his bed. And a bed is simply that which we prepare in life for ourselves. It is our place of rest. It is that place we make to comfort ourselves, or to give us comfort while we sleep or while we're at rest, preparing. 3. Therefore made I a decree to bring in all the wise men of Babylon before me, that they might make known unto me the interpretation of the dream. So Nebuchadnezzar is going to make a decree. He's going to send out the word. He's going to send a paper and his men forth, these messengers, out all to all the wise men of Babylon, those are those of confusion, these wise men of confusion, that they might make known this dream and the interpretation of it. 4. Then came in the magicians, the enchanters, the Chaldeans, and the astrologers, and I told the dream before them, but they did not make known unto me the interpretation thereof. So he gets all the magicians, these magical ones, these enchanters, these that have all the great words to speak over potions and all manners of continuous enchantings over and over and over the same things. And these Chaldeans, these clod breakers, these ones are supposed to be the wisest in the land, and the astrologers, those that gaze into the heavens at the stars and the lights thereof, thinking there's some kind of answer that's going to come from them. And they told the dream before them, but they did not make known unto me the interpretation thereof. So all these just couldn't understand what the dream meant. 5. But at last Daniel came in before me, whose name was Belteshazzar, according to the name of my God, and in whom the spirit of the holy gods. I told the dream before him. But at last Daniel, this judge of the mighty one, he come in before me, whose name was Belteshazzar, and that's that Lord over that correct treasure, that Lord over that true treasure, or that true store that's laid up according to the name of my God. And that was that, not a God that God had given over all of Babylon to worship, that image that they had raised up, and whom the spirit of the holy gods. And this spirit of the holy gods, this spirit or this understanding, this strength and power of these holy gods, these things that were holy, that means to be, it's set aside, it's hallowed, it's dedicated, it's something that shouldn't be messed with. It belongs to God. It's these things he rules over all the nations with. And he tells the dream before him. 6. O Belteshazzar, master of the magicians, because I know the spirit of the holy gods is in you, and no secret causes you trouble, tell me the visions of my dream that I have seen, and the interpretation thereof. O Belteshazzar, this Lord of the true treasure, he's the master of magicians according to their understanding. And because he knew this, because the spirit of the holy gods, or the spirit of those hallowed things that God had laid up, it was within him, and he had no secret that could cause him trouble. Why? Because God had given him understanding in all visions and dreams, just like it says. These things that could be seen, they're like a dream, they're like a vision, but they're real. 7. Thus were the visions of my head upon my bed. I saw and behold a tree in the midst of the earth, and the height thereof was great. And now this vision, this perception, and this we're going to use as an overall similitude. See, this vision, this dream, so to speak, of his understanding came upon him while he was on his bed, and that's that place he had prepared for himself in life, that place of rest. He saw, and behold, there was a tree in the midst of the earth, and this tree was going to be this thing that lifts up off the earth and exalts itself into the sky, and that's what a tree kind of represents. That's what grows and exalts, and we'll find out it bears fruit, these things that the tree can do, and it's in the midst of the earth. It's within the earth. It's in the midst of that which is earth, and all things that are made of it. And the height thereof, it was great, and it grew to a magnificent height. It was a very tall tree. 8. The tree grew and was strong, and the height thereof reached unto heaven, and the sight thereof to the end of all the earth. And this tree grew, and it was strong. We'll find God was prospering it. And the height thereof, it reached unto heaven. It reached all the way up to this that is above, that understanding even is unreachable. And the sight thereof to the end of the earth. It could be seen from everywhere on the earth. It was so high. 9. The leaves thereof were fair, and the fruit thereof much, and it was good, and it was food for all. The beasts of the field had shadow under it, and the fowls of the heaven dwelt in the branches thereof. All the flesh was fed of it. And the leaves thereof, they were fair, they were beautiful to look upon, they were pleasant, and the fruit thereof was much. It had a lot of fruit on it. It bore much fruit. It was fruitful. and fertile, and it was food for all. And fed all manners of beasts we'll find. The beast of the field had shadow under it. They come and gathered under it for shadow and protection. And that shadow, that where they could escape the sun, escape the light, that shadow which they dwell under. And the fowls of the heaven, they dwell in the branches thereof. And these fowls of heaven, those that soar in the heavens, these that fly in the understandings, they soar and they fly around, they thinking they are the master of the heavens. We'll find out God set them there from the beginning, and out of the sea did they come. These out of all understanding, out of the waters that descended, out of there they came from. And they soar over the heavens. These are the ones that swoop down. There's shadow under their wing and disaster too. And they dwelled in the branches of it. These branches that spread themselves far. These branches, the multitude of them. And all the flesh was fed of it. And all these animals, they ate the fruit. It bare much fruit. 10. I saw the visions of my head upon my bed. And behold, a watcher and a holy one came down from heaven. And I saw these visions, these things we can perceive. And my head, my understandings, even upon my bed, this place which I had created for myself in life. Behold, a watcher and holy one came down from heaven. This watcher, a watcher is someone that can see. This is one who can see. He can perceive. He can understand these visions. And this holy one, this hallowed one, this one that's beginning, see this, and that which was set aside even, prepared, dedicated, he's a dedicated one, came down from heaven, even in understanding. 11, and he cried aloud and said thus, hew down the tree, and cut off its branches, shake off its leaves, and scatter its fruit. Let the beasts get away from under it, and the fowls from its branches. And he cried, and the watcher cried, and said, hew down the tree, hew down that which has exalted itself, and cut off its branches. Strip off those things that spread themselves, shake off its leaves, all its beauty and its fairness, and scatter its fruit. Those things that it bears, these things that it bears, and those things that they feed on, these beasts, let the beasts get away from under it. Scatter them about, they'll not find shade there. These that rip, these that tear, these that for whatever beast there is, we'll find out. These beasts of the field are those that consume that which groweth. And the fowls from its branches, these that take refuge there, these that hide in those branches, these fowls from heaven. And these are those that soar, that fly through all the understandings, and they swoop down for their prey. 12. Nevertheless, leave the stump of its roots in the earth, even in a band of iron and brass, and in the tender grass of the field, and let it be wet with the dew of heaven, and let his portion be with the beast and the grass of the earth. Nevertheless, let the stump of its roots be in the earth. And this is that which the watcher would continue to say, the crier, even in a band of iron and brass. And this iron and brass, that's the rule under the rule of men, and that cold darkness even from the beginning, see, in tender grass. Grass is that which groweth in the field and in outside the city, see, that which groweth abroad. This tender grass, that's that little grass down deep, and let it be wet with the dew of heaven. Moistened this dew of heaven, stayed in its understanding, just the dew, there's no rain. And let his portion be with the beast and the grass of the earth. And his portion, that which, a portion is a part, and that his part be with the beast and the grass of the earth. These beasts, those that graze, those that are outside the city, see, those that are outside in the field. And the field means to be out abroad, to be left out, to be in the earth, so to speak. This grass of the earth to be like the tender grass of the earth, that which is coming forth, that which is yet coming forth. 13. Let his heart be changed from man's, and let his heart be giving unto him, and let 7 times pass over him. and let his heart be changed from a man's, and a beast's heart be given him. This man's heart, or a man's understanding. See, that's what that is. That is within. That is that heart of this that we feel with, that which we can experience emotion, that which our intellect has, and let a beast's heart be given unto him. And this beast's heart is that which has no understanding according to that of a man. See, but unto a beast has its own understanding, not according to a man. Because God, we'll find out, does give understanding, and he's making an example. And let this period, this 7 times, pass over him. This 7, once again, 7 is to a perfection. It's to accomplish. It's the accomplishment of perfection, even, because 6 days God did his work. The 7th day he rested, and that was that he accomplished his work. And this times here is may be interpreted as a year, Edon, but it's not a year in so much as it is a period of time. A period of time. And usually a period of a portion, see, of time, like a week and a month, or a month and a year. That's what we're really talking about here, these 7 times. This word Edon, it gets a root in Ed, and that is a period that it's referred to as a period most likely of ministration. 14. And the matter is by the decree of the watchers, and the sentence by the word of the holy ones, to the intent of the living may know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will. And he setteth up over it the lowest of men. And the matter is by decree of the watchers, and this is by the decree of the watchers, this word that they sent forth, these that can understand the visions, these that are able to perceive these things. And the sentence is by the word of the holy ones, these even the ones that are hallowed, that were set aside in the beginning for a purpose, and to the intent that the living may know that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men, and he giveth it to whomsoever he will. And it's so that the intent, see, that Nebuchadnezzar, this prophet that protects the crown, can understand one thing, that Most High rules in the kingdom of men. God rules, and he set the kings up, and he gives them dominion over that which belongs to him. See, those are his servants, and they work for him, and he sets up over it the lowest of men in Nebuchadnezzar. 15. This dream I, King Nebuchadnezzar, have seen, and you, O Belteshazzar, declare the interpretation, for as much as all the wise men of my kingdom are not able to make known unto me the interpretation, but you are able, for the Spirit of the holy gods is in you. And that was the vision. And now the interpretation, for as much as all the wise men of Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom couldn't figure out the interpretation of it, but Belteshazzar, the Lord of the true treasure, the Lord of the true store, is going to interpret it, because he's able, and we'll find out. God has given him understanding. God gave him some knowledge, a little bit to see into these visions. 16. Then Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, was appalled for a while, and his thoughts affrighted him. The king spoke and said, Belteshazzar, let not the dream or the interpretation affright you. Belteshazzar answered and said, My lord, the dream be to them that hate you, and the interpretation thereof to your adversaries. And Daniel, he's the judge and the mighty one, whose name was Belteshazzar, and that the Lord over that treasure, the true storage, was appalled for a moment, a while, as he sat there pondering this, that he said in appallment, see, in fear. The king spoke and said to him, Let not the dream or the interpretation scare you. And Daniel answered and said, My lord, the dream be to them that hate you. It's not to your good. It's for the good of those that hate you, and the interpretation is for your adversaries. It's going to be to their good. 17. The tree that you saw, which grew and was strong, whose height reached unto the heaven, and the sight thereof to all the earth. This tree that you saw, that grew and was strong, God was prospering, and its height reached unto heaven, to all understanding, and the sight of it was to all the earth. All the flesh had sight of it. 18. Whose leaves were fair, and the fruit thereof much, and it was food for all, under which the beasts of the field dwell, and upon whose branches the fowls of the heaven had their habitation. And its leaves, those things which it bear, are fair, they're beautiful, its pleasantness, and the fruit thereof much. It's great, it's that to be desired. And it was food for all. And it was food for all, they all fed, under which the beasts of these field, they dwelt. They found that shadow there. They found the shade, upon whose branches the fowls of the heaven had their habitation. These branches, all these things that come forth from it, and that's which it sends forth to bear. That which it sends forth to bear were many. And these fowls, once again, these are those that swoop down, even out of understanding, for their prey, and these found their habitation there in it. 19. It is you, O King. Thou art grown, become strong. For your greatness is grown, and reacheth unto heaven, and your dominion to the end of the earth. It is you, O King, and that would be Nebuchadnezzar, that prophet that protects the crown, that are grown, and you've become strong, and your greatness is grown, and you reach unto heaven, you've reached out even unto all understanding, and your dominion is to the end of the earth. It is to the end of these things of flesh, and these things of the earth that come from it. 20. And whereas the king saw a watcher and a holy one coming down from heaven, and saying, Hew down the tree and destroy it, nevertheless leave the stump of the roots thereof in the earth, even in a band of iron and brass, and in tender grass of the field. Let it be wet with the dew of heaven, and let the portion be with the beast of the field, till 7 times pass over him. And whereas the king saw this watcher and this holy one coming down, this one who understands the visions, this perceiver, this holy one, this one that was dedicated, set aside for a purpose, coming down from heaven, even out of understanding, and saying, Hew down the tree and destroy it. Nevertheless, leave the stump of its roots. Remember, this stump that's going to be left in the earth, be wet with the dew of heaven, that which God gives. See, that's that slow distilling of understanding coming upon you. In a band of iron and brass, not rule of man under that cold darkness, even in the tender grass of the field, the stump is left. And let it be wet with the dew of heaven. That dew, once again, it comes from God. And its portion shall be with the beast of the field, until 7 times pass over, until the perfection of these periods, even that which God gives, causes to pass over, to come upon them. 21. And this is the interpretation, O king. It is the decree of the Most High, which is come upon my lord the king. And the interpretation or the meaning of it, O king, is a decree from the Most High, from God himself, and it's come upon the Lord the king. 22. That you shall be driven from men, and your dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field, and you shall be made to eat grass as oxen, and shall be wet with the dew of heaven. And 7 times shall pass over you, till you know that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men, and he gives it to whomsoever he will. And you will be driven from men. And that's driven out, be set out like a beast of the field, these ones that bramble outside the city abroad. These that pull, we're going to find out like an ox. Because to pull, because to be like an ox and take your substance of the field, you shall be wet with this dew of heaven. And that is the slow distillation of God's understanding. And the 7 times, the perfection of these periods, till you get understanding, shall pass over you, until you know that the Most High, he rules in the kingdom of men. These periods of losing understanding, see, because God has the ability to take away knowledge. God has the ability to take away understanding. God gives understanding. God gives knowledge. He can take your understanding of and what you thought you had, and over a slow period of time, He can change it. See, God does that according. He gives you the heart that you desire, and your desires fall upon you, see. And He takes the kingdom, He gives it to whomsoever He will. 23, and whereas it was commanded to leave the stump of the roots of the tree, your kingdom shall be sure unto you. After that you shalt know, after that you shall have known that the heavens do rule. Where it is commanded to leave this stump, and that stump is that that's going to be left. We can tell the size of the stump, how big the tree used to be, and the size of the stump is an evidence that's left of that which was hewn down, and the roots of the tree. His kingdom shall be sure unto you. It shall be made known. We'll find out. It was a lamp God left in the beginning. That's like a little lamp there, that stump. 24, wherefore, O king, let my counsel be acceptable unto you, and break off your sins by almsgiving, and your iniquities by showing mercy to the poor, if there be a lengthening of your prosperity. Wherefore, O king, and Nebuchadnezzar, the prophet that protects the crown, would be the king, let my counsel be acceptable unto you, this counsel, this word that Daniel, the judge of the mighty ones, speaking. And break off from your sins by almsgiving. Break off from your sins. Sin is simple. Sin is a transgression of the law of God. That's what sin is. And before the law, there was no sin. See, the law does define sin. It tells us what it is. It gives us the understanding we need to know how to separate it. And break off from that. Break off from doing evil. By almsgiving, by doing good, by doing something that prospers, something that brings some understanding into the world. And your iniquities, these are your perversions, your twistings, your sins, by showing mercy to the poor. By showing mercy to the poor, those that don't have, see, instead of being respecters of person. 25, all this came upon the king Nebuchadnezzar, and all this came upon the king, it all fell upon him, and upon him, that prophet that protects the crown. 26, and at the end of the months, he was walking upon the royal palace of Babylon. And at the end, that's it, at the end of a little period there, we'll see, of 12 months, yes, 12 is 10 and 2. And that's the law is going to be witnessed, and the law, even in the lesser light, see, that's God's ability to judge the kings. It doesn't matter. You know, the kings probably thought that God only judged the kings of Israel. We'll find out God judges them all. See, this is all, God's been doing this for a long time. He sets these kings up, He judges them, He takes away their kingdoms, He takes away them, He sets up someone else and tries to do better, and nobody listens. They keep on going astray. 12's understanding. And 12's some understanding we ought to get from these lesser lights, these months, as they go through their cycles to complete the greater understanding. That's a year. 27. The king spoke and said, Is not this great Babylon, which I have built for a royal dwelling place, by the might of my power and for the glory of my majesty? And we'll find out the king lifts himself up here. The king boasts himself, saying, Is not this great Babylon, this great city of confusion, which I have built for my royal dwelling place? Which I have built? Which I have made? No, God. We'll find that God had given Nebuchadnezzar rule. God lifted him up. God was using him. And it was by the might of God that he did it. But Nebuchadnezzar, we'll find out, boasts himself, lifts himself up, and these are those that exalt themselves. 28. While the word was in the king's mouth, there fell on a voice from heaven, O King Nebuchadnezzar, to you it is spoken, the kingdom is departed of you. And while he was yet speaking, see, we'll remember now what's going to happen to Nebuchadnezzar. It's going to come back to his remembrance, see, that which had been spoken. See, O King Nebuchadnezzar, the prophet that protects the crown, the kingdom is departed. And as soon as he had spoken in his boast, we'll find out it had returned to him that which had been spoken, that the kingdom would be removed. 29, and you shall be driven from men, and your dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field. You shall be made to eat grass as oxen, and 7 times shall pass over you, until you know that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men, and he gives it to whomsoever he will. And you shall be driven from men. Now the word's going to fall upon him because he boasted. He lifted himself up. He exalted himself. And he's driven from men. He's driven out of the understanding of men into the beasts of the field and get their understanding. See, that until this period of time, till these 7, we'll find out, till the perfection of these periods shall pass over you, till you get some understanding that God rules. God rules in the kingdom of men, and he gives it to whomsoever he will. The same hour was the thing fulfilled upon Nebuchadnezzar, and he was driven from men, and did eat grass as oxen, and his body was wet with the dew of heaven, till his hair was grown like eagle's feathers, and his nails were like bird's claws. In that same hour, this hour is within that moment of understanding, it was fulfilled. And it fell upon Nebuchadnezzar, that prophet that protects the crown, and he was driven from men. His understanding was gone, and he ate the grass, and he grazed around like an ox, having that of the beast, to bramble, and his body was wet in the dew of heaven. And God was bringing understanding upon him slowly, see, in that slow distillation, till his hair was grown like eagle's feathers. And his hair, that hair is supposed to be your glory. It's grown, it's grown out like these eagle's feathers. And eagle's feathers are this vulture, these birds, this great fowl of heaven, this swoops down. See, that's that with tears and cuts, and it's got these talons, and its nails, these things which it grabs and grasps a hold of, are like bird's claws. It's like a vulture. 31, and at the end of the days I, Nebuchadnezzar, lifted up mine eyes unto heaven, and mine understanding returned unto me. And I blessed the Most High, and I praised and I honored him, that he lived forever, for his dominion is an everlasting dominion, and his kingdom from generation to generation. And at the end of the understandings, at the end of these periods of time, seeing Nebuchadnezzar, that prophet that protects the crown, got back his understanding. He lifted up his eyes unto heaven, unto understanding that God had gave him from the beginning. His understanding returned unto him, and he blessed the Most High. See, he blessed God, because God had done that. That was the work of God right there. Now, he took, and Nebuchadnezzar was his servant, that prophet that protects the crown. See, he was his servant. He was working for God, carrying out that ordinance of God, carrying out the judgment of God. He praised and honored God. For God's dominion, see, is an everlasting dominion. His kingdom is from generation to generation, unlike those of the kings of the earth. See, they will go to their way, but God's always going to be there. See, an everlasting dominion. His rule is always. His kingdom, generation to generation. One generation after another, God, like I said, he's standing there constantly calling, saying, turn, turn, and return, see, to the law I gave you in the beginning. 32. And all the inhabitants of the earth are reputed as nothing, and he does according to his will in the host of heaven, and among the inhabitants of the earth, and none can stay his hand, or say unto him, what doest you? And all the inhabitants of the earth, these are all the peoples and flesh, anything that's living flesh, that anything that grows, is reputed as nothing. He does according to his will in the host of heaven. Whatever God wants, God does. This was made, it's his creation. This is God's garden. He jerks up that which doesn't please him. He shakes it off and he casts it out. Among the inhabitants of the earth, these are those that do inhabit the earth, that place of flesh, and none can stay his hand. See, none can stay his work. None can stop God. None has the ability or the strength of God. This is his. They can't say unto him, what do you? See, because God knows what he's doing. You just got here, and you're not going to be here. When you got here, see, God was here. And after you're gone, God's still going to be here. At the same time, 33, my understanding returned unto me, and for the glory of my kingdom, my majesty and my splendor returned unto me. My ministers and my lords sought unto me, and I was established in my kingdom. Surpassing greatness was added unto me. And at the same time, lifted up my eyes unto heaven. Nebuchadnezzar lifts up his eyes unto heaven. His understanding returns unto him. His glory, his kingdom, his majesty, his splendor, everything God had given him returns, see. His ministers, his lords, they sought unto him. He was established in his kingdom, that dominion that God had given him to rule. And his surpassing greatness was added unto him. And surpassing greatness, even more greatness because of that which he had done. 34. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and extol and honor the King of heaven, for all his works are truth, and his ways justice. And those that walk in pride, he is able to abase. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, that prophet that protected the crown, praise and extol and honor the King of heaven, because he is king, God is king, and there is no one else above God in understanding, because, see, God controls understanding. The light dwells with him. He is the God of darkness. He is the God of light. He is God, and there is no other. And all his works, all his doings, are truth and righteousness and justice in his ways. And those that walk in pride, he is able to abase. And that means to bring them down. He can set them on the bottom. He can make them the top, the middle, anywhere in between. He is God, and all things are his. Let's move to chapter 5. Turn and return.